All right. Hey everyone, this is Delta Penguin from TechPeng. Let's see. Well, today we are going to look at what is React. What is React? Actually, good question. Let's see. What is React? It's a development server that uses Webpack to compile React, JSX, ES6, auto prefix CSS files. Okay, JavaScript-based UI development library. So this was developed by Facebook, and but they made it open source available to other people, other developers. All right, so that's the official thing. So let's go and let's work on some React. Let's do the fun stuff. Okay, well, first of all, let's go to, we got to kick the server back up. So where are we at? Are we in our app? Yep, super cool test app. We got to restart it in order for it to run on our local host. Oops. On our local machine, right? If we try it now, it's just going to fail. In order for it to be running, we have to start it up. So let's start that process. Let's npm start. So, yep, so this video, we're just going to play around a bit and try to get some stuff in React going. All right, good. So it's back up again. It has the changes we made. Cool. And I mentioned when we work on code, we want to work on it from Visual Studio Code. That's the best way. A code editor like this is the best way to do it, because then you have all the nice highlighting and stuff like that. So I'm in a search right now. So let me go back to the folders, the file structure. So we're at source app.js. That's where we're at. I'll see if I can find a way to nicely kind of display both of them. All right, so this is cool, but how do we do more with this? We mentioned that the power of programming, the power of like websites, one of the things is that it's online. So once, well, this one's local, but once you get it online, like I mentioned, once you create a website, if you're able to find some site that hosts it or create your own server, then now anyone can visit this site, and anyone can go and look it up, play around with it, and stuff like that. That's the power of being online, having a website. But from there, like remember what we said, what makes code useful and useful to the user? Well, it's useful when you can change what you give it, like when it has more potential or possibilities. Kind of like here, it's like I made a couple just utility functions for people on the go, right? If you want to flip coins, it flips 10 different coins. Roll some 6-sided dice, 8-sided dice, 10. Oh, this would be a little bit more useful if I allowed the user to type in a number instead, because then they could roll a 12-sided. Oh, I have 12-sided. Oh, then they could roll some other, other odd number like a 20-sided die or something like that, if they wanted to, random letters. But there is some extra usefulness here, because stuff like this, it's like, hey, I'm actually allowing people, aside from just, hey, generating the random topics, right? I'm allowing users to be able to type in, to categorize it for themselves, and then be able to type in a new value and then submit it. And then it might have to be approved afterwards, I forget, but I mean, we'll say it. Yes, it has to be approved. Don't do anything you shouldn't. But then it should appear, whenever it's approved, it should appear within the list of random items. Yeah. So that's what makes it useful. Because right now, if it was limited to this, it only has so much usefulness. But once you open it up and say, hey, now you can, provide your own number or provide your own, like your own joke or compliment or something or riddle. Now the more users that you get interacting with it, the more, creative ideas you get in here, the more valuable this website could become, right? The more So it opens up the floodgates in essence when you're able to do something like that. But the question is, how do you, first it's getting the content. That's one aspect of it, getting quality data. Another aspect is making a quality UI to make it look probably a little prettier than this. But right now it's more just functionality and trying to get something to work. But if we can get, as a person who's trying to start up in coding and just get a side project running, what you need is something like this. You need to be able to write data, and you need to be able to get that data back. And that's what you should be going for. That said, we know a little bit, right? We know that if you write it, you want to write it in something like a SQL Server. So that's, a topic for another day. That, getting this whole save loading thing is a little bit of a process. But for a basic case, it isn't too hard if you have a backend server that you can use. So that's a bit tricky. Trying to figure out how to get people started on that could be a little bit trickier. I know if you do the Heroku is a good website for some free options of hosting a simple SQL server and also hosting some simple websites. They also have some paid options, but they get pretty pricey. So at least to start with the free options, see if you like it, and see if you can figure out how it works. But I originally started here before I set up my own server, and it works well enough for that. Especially their SQL stuff is pretty good. But that said, either way, even if you had a SQL server running, you need your website you need to be able to create your website in a way that it can accept new data, and then be able to send it to that SQL server, right? Well, send it to some backend server, which processes it and puts it in the SQL server. That's technically what's going on. It sends the data to a node server in the backend, which has access to the SQL, and then it writes it or loads the data. But for now, let's work on just working a bit with React. Get some functionality going, and read some data in. Even though we don't have our own server for this purposes yet, there is some test server data that'll give you like a test JSON, a JSON with some test data in it that we can use. So let's see if we can pull something like that off in this time. All right, so right now, something like this would be ideal. This is what we got right now. All right, let's see. One thing we can do is making tabs like this takes a little bit more effort. It's nice, but it takes a bit more effort. To start, we just want something running. So we'll just have everything in this single page, and we'll see what we can do. How about, I know there's a standard way of creating text boxes, but the way I do it, I like the way I do it a bit better. But I'm trying to remember what that standard way is. Okay. Let's ignore some of this for now. Let's see. I like to write the date on things. Let's start. Cool. Let's see. Text input or read JSON. All right. How about, let's think. Let's start with reading some JSON in. Oh man, I wonder if I'm jumping too far ahead. All right. Well, we haven't looked too much at code yet, so let's look around. I might just have to do multiple videos or something. We haven't looked at too much code. This is like importing in certain libraries or other pieces of code. So this imports CSS. I mentioned that. That's a little bit like like this, like background color. If you remember when we were messing around with HTML, right? We could change the color of the text, or the background of the text. So that's basically, we were messing with CSS before. And so that's kind of like what this is here. So it's saying that it imports some CSS, and that's probably what gives it the black background and this white text here. I mean, we could even test it. Let's see, app header, white. How about green instead? Oh, look at that. So I was correct. And app header, so it's affecting the, and they named it well. So the app header, it's using this tag right here as a class name, and that's how it knows, okay, what should I apply this app CSS, all this stuff, what should I apply it to? Anything with the dot means class, anything with the class called app header. And that's where, okay, header, app header, so the header tag is here, so it's applying it to everything in here. All right, let's see. That green, that dark green is a little hard to read, so let's go ahead and, I think we did light green before, and that was a valid color, light green. Cool. I don't know if I like the black background. Let's change that to white. Oops. It's probably going to error from, oh, okay. I don't think that thing is supposed to be there, but okay. White. Okay, so now it's white. It's maybe a little too bright. I mean, I don't want to copy my own thing too much. I like the old talk point, which is nice and gray. Try to make it a little more unique. I guess either way, as I code through this, you can kind of like see however long it takes. You can see how I do it, how I play with things, and that'll give you some ideas as well, hopefully. All right, how about, yeah, white's a little too bright. I know there was, I don't know, that had all those names from before, right? Salmon. What's a good neutral color? I'm not as good at figuring this start out. White. Okay, oh, look at that. As I'm typing, it's kind of, it knows it's CSS, it's trying to give me hints. I think wheat is kind of like a yellowish. Let's save. Okay, wheat. What's that white smoke? I don't want it, yeah, just a little bit. Okay, that's a little better, just not a pure white. Okay. And then if I do that, then the light green's a little too light now. I'll just regular green. Okay, it's dark green. All right, so let's go classic. We can always style it later, black. All right. What else to do? Okay, so this, now we know CSS is related to the styles and changing colors, stuff like that. I mentioned we wanted to read data because that's going to be a pretty big and important thing in general, being able to check APIs and get data back. So let's see if we can code up something real quick. This is HTML, right? These are different tags that mean different things. So when it comes to a text box, that's something called an input, if I'm remember this correctly. Save. Yep, that looks like it. Let's see. Yep, it's definitely a text box. If you're not sure, you can be like, okay, Google, what is HTML common tags? Something like that. It's like, okay, there's the P for paragraph, like we saw. Oh, there's the line break, right? HR, what's this? Horizontal rule creates a horizontal line on the page. So if you're not sure, you can, again, now that you're in this test environment, the world is your oyster, in essence. You get as much effort as you put in, but like you have the ability to, play with all this stuff now, which is pretty awesome. On your own machine. There might be other ways of doing it, like the W3 school, but this is cool because this is more of a code development way of setting things up. More technical, but more powerful. Okay, let's see. So the HR, let's see what that is. I'm curious. Let's see let's just see what happens. So I put the HR in, I save it, Control S. Oh wait, looks like this guy. Okay, so it made this little line. That's kind of cool, right? Try again. Yeah, so do 2 lines. But see, this thing here is like nothing really goes in between it. So it looks a little nicer if you just make it a self-closing tag. It's just prettier. Okay, so that might be a little better so that this isn't like clashing like directly with the text, right? Okay, so this is a text box. Cool. Cool, it's a text box. Text box, and then let's see what happens if I keep on typing. Oh, okay, looks like it scrolls. Did I lose the data or is it still there? Nope, it's still there. Okay, so it stores the data. If I go overboard, or if I, what do they call it? If I type too much, if I overflow the text box, then it still exists, but it's kind of hard to read now. I have to like scroll. So how would I change something like that? Well, that would be like a styling issue, right? Whether like styling as in like, hey, the color or the size of the text, things like that. It's styling. So it's probably CSS related. So a better practice is to try to create your styles in something like CSS. And there might be some more advanced ways of doing it. But one way you can just do it on the fly is within the main tag. If you do something like style, you look at the style property, equal, and remember I did something before like this where like color green, right? And then that worked. One thing to note is the code that React uses isn't fully JavaScript. Like this file technically is a JSX. Well, this one might be JavaScript, but what React uses technically is like JSX. So it's kind of like, I don't know, JavaScript plus or something like that. What does that mean? It means you can, it's like a lot of this is HTML, right? But it's like HTML mixed with code, because normally when you have HTML, it's just this, right? This is HTML, but look at this. There's a function, right? Isn't a function more like a coding programming thing? And the answer is yes. Like this is normally like what you would do for the JavaScript side of it, where it's just the code portion. And usually back in the day or in the past, you would have all the JavaScript, all the code stuff would be in its own separate file, as like a script tag. So here, like one of these HTML tags, but it'd be called script, and then it would refer to some other like JavaScript file, and then you would have all the UI separate, like this. All the HTML would be in its own HTML file. But now with React or with JSX, they have a combination of the two, and I don't know. I haven't messed that much with JavaScript, but I would say that JSX feels like it's a billion times better. I'm just saying, it feels amazing once you get it. It's incredible. Yeah, so basically, okay, HTML, but it's actually being wrapped directly in like some JavaScript code. And because of this, you can actually mix the two together even further. And that takes some time to figure out and to go through. I might give some examples, but yeah, just realize it'll take some time to figure out and get and understand. But the gist of that, what's the point of that? Why did I say that? I explained that because if it was pure HTML, these things would be named class and not class name. So it's just like a minor difference. Instead of, if it was pure HTML, all these would be called class. But JSX, you name them class name instead, like that, with camel case. Additionally, when it comes to styles, instead of something like this, which we saw, it's a similar thing, but instead you have to do double curly brackets, and then, yeah, let's see, and then you can put the style in. Let's practice with text first, because it probably won't work on, well, it might work on a text box. Let's see. Okay, gave me an error. Did not like that. Okay, it goes more like this, I think. No? Are you sure? Oh, input, okay, input. I think it just doesn't like it because it's a text box. Let's put it by some, okay, some text. I'm gonna wrap, let's Starto. So I'm gonna wrap Starto in div because I want to give it something special. I'm gonna give it a style color green. Okay, so I just copied, I cut the text, put it in here so that Starto is within this special div that has a style of green. Control S. No, didn't like that still. Input is a void element tag. It is, did I get rid of? It doesn't like something. Are you that picky? No? Okay, just gonna get rid of input for a second. Okay, ignore input for a second. All right, Starto. So the input was causing me an issue. Just gonna get rid of it for now, just so I can test some other stuff. Okay, Starto is green, cool. And then you can do similar things like, remember we had background color also. Let's say black. And then I think probably comma to separate them out. So another thing to note, so it's the style is in a double bracket instead in JSX. And also instead of stuff like this, where it has the dash, it uses camel case. So Control S. Yep, so now you have background black, color being light green. Okay, cool. And so you can see that, you know, you can style things in a number of different ways. But yeah, that's just some examples. All right, cool. How about, and that's just something, you know, you play with until it looks the way you like. All right, input. I don't fully remember. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Oops. So I change it to something that's valid. Control S. All right, it doesn't like that. So let me see. React, and part of getting good at programming is you don't have to remember everything, but you just have to know how to find it. So React, what I'm using is JSX. So I could say, well, React is the programming language, so we can just say React, or it's the, I don't know, maybe it's the development platform for the JSX. Technically, maybe more something like that. But okay, React text box. I just want to React text box and then input example. How do you create it? And then you can find stuff like this. The Stack Overflow is one of the main sites for question answers and help for stuff like that. So I'd recommend that as a good resource. Let's try that then. Because people ask questions, and then you can they'll ask a question here, and then people can upvote, downvote. They'll try to give answers. And then if there's a green check mark, there's none here, and that would be kind of the official accepted answer. Text field, okay. It's this, but it's using something. It's using some other library. It's using Material UI. So input is the standard HTML tag for it. So I'm gonna get that guy. Yeah, excessively copy just to make sure it works. Sometimes there's issues. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in. I'm gonna try saving it. It's gonna say, oh, it doesn't like some things here. This is undefined. What's undefined? This is undefined. This, okay. This keyword is undefined. That's fine. Because these are basically there's some variables. But we haven't defined them yet, is basically what it's saying. And this keyword isn't defined either. So instead of variables, let me just hard code a value. Let's say the initial text box and value. Okay. And this is a function. So on change, something should happen. And for now, we're just going to say, I'm going to cut that. I'm going to say nothing. We don't care. All right, what's the problem? Oh, it doesn't like that. Just get rid of on change for now. Okay. So now it's not causing errors. And we can see that our text box is back. And it started with this value. So instead of being empty, it starts with some value. And can I change it? Oh, I'm trying to type different things, and it doesn't let me change it because it's set to a specific value right now. All right. The more I think about it, there's more. There's definitely a good start, but there's more. There's more that has to be taught or learned about React and state and how React works. So, okay, well, we'll get there in a little bit. Maybe a video after this. Either way, it's good. We got a text box. It's kind of nice. I'll show you some other examples of things you can do. Let's say style. Okay, didn't like some things, but style. How about you can do most things can handle this. Style, height. And then in this case, you have to do a string. So height of, how about 100 pixels, px, 100 pixels. Let's look at that. So now it's larger than before. Height, how about width? Width of 200 pixels. Okay. So this could be handy because maybe not the height, but the width could be handy for that one time when we went too far, right? We had too much data, and then you couldn't easily see it. In this case, it might be nice if the width was the same as this guy up here. It looks like it's, I don't know, for some reason these lines are this long, and maybe the box should be that long also. So we can kind of just play around with it. Oh, how about 300? Oh, getting close. Well, let me just see. What about 400? Oh, it actually made the other things larger. Okay, interesting. 600? Okay. Okay, well, looks like a little under 300, then it starts becoming smaller than everything else. So based on however you want your website to look, you can kind of like be, okay, well, I think 450 is that's decently good. And then the height looks funny, so let me just change that to, you could also make it smaller than it ought to be, 10. Does that go too small? I think if you don't add anything, then it gives it, okay, let's say 1 pixel. Yeah, it's too small. So if you don't add anything, then it'll give it whatever the default, whoops, too far. So Control Y to redo instead of undo. So if you don't give it anything, it'll just give it enough height, the standard height. I think the font's a little bit small compared to everything else. So I'm going to say font size equal to 24 pixels. And then it's complaining, if I Control S errors, it's complaining right here. It needs some separation. So, comma. Okay, now it's not complaining. Control S, it worked. So that must have been right. Cool. So yeah, now this looks a little nicer. Okay, so it doesn't let me change the value. So more than the initial value, it looks like the value is just set in it. So if I get rid of that, save. Okay. Oh, it's probably now. Okay, now I can type. Okay, let me just reload it. Okay, yeah. So now there's no initial value, and now I can type and change something. Because the value, because it was a hard-coded set value and wasn't like a variable, or in this case in React, it needed a state variable. That's why it was stubbornly staying the same and not letting me change it. Okay, so now I can type a lot more, and then based on whatever you need this for, then you can make it smaller or bigger. But you notice, like, if you just saw this website out of the blue, other than being super awesome because this has this little spinning atom thing and a cool colored hip thing there. Like aside from that, it's like if you just look at this offhand, it's like, well, what is a text box, but what is it for? Like, like what does it want from me? And so as you develop websites, you kind of learn, oh, I need to like make this more obvious to the user. So maybe you'd be like, okay, text box, where are we at? Input is the text box. So maybe we could say something like username. Yep. Username. Cool. So now they know, okay, then type username, and then maybe to make it a little nicer, I could put like a colon there, colon, and then maybe a space. So does it give it? No, it didn't give it space. Okay, well, for some reason that's kind of stuck together, and then you'd have to find some way to separate that a little bit to make it look nicer. But now they know, okay, this is username, or this is email, or, this is, I don't know, your credit card info. Just kidding. Don't do that. Don't try to, careful about sensitive data. You could get yourself in trouble. Yourself or other people, legal trouble. So watch yourself there. Okay. Jokes aside, how about I don't know, it could be, I don't know, your book title. So it's up to you to decide, what are you creating the website for, and what is it going to be used for. So far so good. You can type stuff in, but we need some way to get this data out. And how did we do that in the past? Well, when we were just talking about examples. Well, to do that, we needed something like the calculator program, right? If you look at the calculator program, how is it able to add the numbers when you click them? 7 plus 6. Well, in order to do that, it had to store this data in memory somewhere, right? It had to remember it so that when you press equal, it's like, okay, whatever the first item was plus whatever the second item is. Okay, now I can give you the results. In the same way, we're going to need some way to store this. Okay, aside from that, let me see. We probably should call it. All right, we'll call it for this video.